Welcome to the Book Tea with V.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Book Tea with V. It has been such a huge couple of weeks within Booktok, the book community. But as always, let's start and let's talk some pop culture. So unless you've been living under a rock, you would have seen the Victoria's Secret fashion show that happened a couple of days ago, whether you watched the show or like me, have been picking up snippets from TikTok. And there was something that to me was just very glaringly different to all the other shows that have happened in the past. For me, it's just something I've always loved to watch. I've loved every single show. The production is always insane. The artists, the models, of course, but the outfits, just everything. Did anyone else think the production level of this year's Victoria's Secret fashion show was just not it? I don't know, like the models, incredible. The singers, like the artists, incredible. But the stage, I was like, is this it? For something so global, like that brand is so huge, it just felt a little bit mediocre. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you thought. But let's get into the book tea this week because there is so much of it. So of course, we have to talk about the drama that has been circulating on Booktok. And you're probably sitting there going like, which one? Because there is so many. And if there's one thing that I won't do, it's jump on a massive bandwagon, add to a witch hunt. I do feel like there is a little bit of bullying culture within Booktok at the moment, and I just won't engage with it. However, I do want to just briefly say in regards to the Booktoker that is now going to be having a podcast and was referred to on a very famous show as the Queen of Booktok. Whether this was self-proclaimed or not, I do not know. But what I will say is there is no queen. There is no hierarchy within Booktok and this community. We're all queens. We all give something. And that's just my thought on that. But let's get into the good stuff because Anna Huang's Striker is nearly with us. And why do I feel like this is going to be her best book yet? I don't know. I just have a gut feeling and I cannot wait to get it in my greedy little hands. But speaking of The Striker by Anna Huang, we have to talk about The Defender. So I don't know if you saw a couple of days ago, I did a video about the fact that it was out on Goodreads. So we now know there's a book 2. It will be out on October 9th. All is well, could change, I don't know, but that's what's scheduled for now. And it's the second book in the Gods of the Game series. I am so excited for this series. I haven't even read a page of this yet. And I already feel like it's going to be one of my favorite series of all time. I just love sports romance and football, like soccer, to my American friends. There's just something about it. I grew up watching David Beckham play and Victoria Beckham in the stands. And that was my goal, to become a wag. So I'm just going to have to live vicariously through this book now. And I felt like the book news just kept coming and coming. Like, honestly, we were blessed in the last 2 weeks. So then we had Rina Kent drop an absolute bombshell. How long have you seen in your comments, or how long have you seen that we just want a book for Gareth from Legacy of Gods? I mean, there's also the Vaughn talk, but let's just focus here for 2 seconds on Gareth. And we've wanted Gareth and Caden's book for so long. But, you know, it's not been on her radar. Fair enough. She's got other plans. I'm here for that too. But then she drops that she's going to do like a spin-off romance for Gareth and Caden. It pretty much broke Booktok. It broke the internet. And why wouldn't it? Because this is just something, after reading God of Fury, we know that Rina Kent's romances, they are something else. And the fact that we're getting a professor vibe to it, I don't know. I am all here for it. I can't wait. I'm so excited. But just on that, it will be released, I think, around March 2025, which pushes back Beautiful Venom, her new Dark Hockey series. We don't have a new date yet, but you know what? More books is more books. I'm not going to complain. And lastly, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Michelle Hurd, who you guys know is one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite mafia authors specifically, she's coming out with a romantasy. And this is out on the 9th of December, I believe. It's called Visions and Shadows. It's going to have an overprotective, over-obsessed MMC. I mean, say less. But what a treat. I can't wait to read it. So let's talk about what I've been reading. So I read Crave by Luna Mason, and this book was sensational. The plot, it's my favorite that she's ever done. It just kept me flipping through the pages. I loved it. Check your trigger warnings. There are heavy themes, but it is so worth it. I was not expecting to like Alexei as much as I did. I loved him. He was hilarious, but so endearing. And Lara, there are a lot of us, I feel, that are going to really connect with Lara. It was so good. And then I read Safe With Me by Stephanie Rose. Now, this is reverse age gap. And honestly, just side note, reverse age gap is like my guilty pleasure. I absolutely love it. Small town romance vibe, cinnamon roll MMC. She is basically running from her past, her ex-boyfriend, and she gets into town and meets the hot, younger than her copper. It's really good. And then on my immediate TBR, we've got Only With Me by Brooke Montgomery. I can't wait to read this one. Small town romance. She just knocks it out of the park every single time. And of course, The Striker by Anna Huang. I am so excited for it. But I will say this, I feel like I do need to add more sports romance to my TBRs. I'm just not reading enough or as much as I used to. But I did read Play the Game by SJ Sylvis. It was so good. And I'm so excited to say that the pre-recorded interview today is with SJ Sylvis herself. SJ Sylvis, thank you so much for being on the Book Tea with V. It is such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, good. So I always start at the beginning because I just find it so interesting. So your first book release was back in 2018. And I just want to know, when did your writing journey start and how?
Well, I feel like I've always been a little bit of a writer. But when I sat down for the first time, I was like, I'm going to write a book. I honestly was bored, which sounds ridiculous, but my husband, he's in the military and he was gone a lot, and I had a baby, and when she was napping, I was just kind of like, well, what do I do other than stare at you? So I just decided to write a book. And then once I wrote it, I was like, wow, I just finished a whole book. Maybe I should just publish this book. And so I published it, and now it's just kind of snowballed from there. I never really intended to make this my career. I have actually a teaching degree, and I was going to go back to teaching when my kids were a little bit older. But now I just write books for a living, which is amazing. And I really enjoy it. So it's nice to have a job that you really enjoy.
Oh, 100%. And that works in with your lifestyle too. I mean,
Yeah.
you had a baby and you're just like, you know what? When I'm not, the baby's asleep, what am I going to do? Let's do
Right.
this. That's so cool. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But you've also said that you are a massive reader yourself, which I just find, I love that when I hear that authors are also still readers, because I'm always like, I wonder how you get the time, and do you have time to yourself and all that sort of thing. So do you
Right.
have 3 top reads of all time?
Honestly, I don't read as much as I wish I could now, because I fall asleep usually. I'm just so tired. My only downtime is night, and then I'm just so tired that I fall asleep. But I do have a top 3 books that I've read just over the years that they just stick with you,
Yeah.
I mean, Harry Potter is always up there for me because those books are just so magical, which is not romance at all, but I just love them so much. I always will love them. Same with Twilight. Always will love those books. They're home to me. But as for more of a recent favorite, Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, I think is what it is. I absolutely devoured that book. I loved it. I love the pacing. I love the characters. That is one of my all-time favorite books. I recommend it all the time. And then let's see, recently I read Fourth Wing, and that was another favorite of mine. Absolutely loved it. I did not read the second book yet though, so
I'm in the same boat as you. I read the first book and I absolutely loved it. But I am a creature of habit. If the book isn't there straight away and a few months have gone by, I'm like, okay. And then I've got to go back and do a reread because there's only so much this brain will retain.
Same. I am the same way. I usually don't even read trilogies, duets, anything unless the second book is out. But I was just so excited to read that book because everyone was talking about it. So I read it and I loved it. I just haven't had the time to read the second book yet.
It was, I agree. It was that's something so different to what I'd read in such a long time. I loved it. Was that your last read, or what was your last read?
No, my last read, oh my gosh. The Graham Effect by Kennedy Ryan. Is that right? Am I doing that?
Elle Kennedy?
No, Elle Kennedy. Elle Kennedy, yes.
Yes.
I knew it was a Kennedy.
Yeah.
So good. I listened to it an audio on the plane when I traveled back home like a couple weeks ago. It was so good. But that's the last one that I like read, listened, whatever. I don't know if you call it reading, but I call it reading.
Oh, definitely. I feel like personally for me, audiobooks are where it's at the moment. I think
Yeah,
everyone's lifestyles are getting so busier that you
agree.
can't physically sit down anymore half the time. So just going around the house with my earphones in, it's just bliss.
It's my favorite way to clean the house, just with an audiobook in my ears. The best way.
Yes, I agree. And I think I've never asked an author this before, and I feel like it's such a good question to see if there's anything that we don't know about you. But is there anything that your readers don't know about you that they'd be surprised to learn?
That I'm a hot mess. I'm just kidding. They probably already know that about me.
We love a hot
Um,
mess here. Bless this hot
I
mess
know. I feel like everyone is a hot mess. Like we're just all just hot messes.
all
I
the
don't
time.
know. Let's see. You know what? Something that I feel like readers are going to be very surprised by, because a lot of my author friends are like, "Wait, what?" So the book that's coming out tomorrow, Play the Game, is a marriage of convenience romance. I have
Hmm.
never read a marriage of convenience romance before, which I know is really weird. Now it's my favorite trope of all time because I wrote it and
Hmm.
I was like, this is amazing. And it was very similar to Fake Dating, which I have read and written before.
Yeah,
So, I didn't feel like scared diving into it. I was like, I kind of get the basics of it, but I've never read a marriage of convenience romance before. So I feel like a
which
lot of people are going to be like, wait, what? How?
yeah, jumped
Yeah,
right in.
I
I
did. I
actually
just
read
want
that
to like
last
dive
night
in.
too.
Huh?
Yeah, I read it last night.
Oh,
It
did
was
you?
I I would never have guessed. I would never
Yeah.
have guessed that that
I've
was your first one and
never,
that you'd never read it before.
yeah, I've just, but I need to because I love the trope now. It's so good. It's such a good trope. Like, I've been missing out for sure. So now I'm like going to need a whole list of like marriage of convenience romance tropes to just read.
100%. And that actually brings me to my next question because you have done multiple genres and tropes. So we've got high school bully, you've sort of got small town, sports. But is there a genre you haven't done or a trope you haven't done that you want to do in the future?
I feel like there's a many tropes that I have not done, like single dad nanny, which is what's coming next. I'm super
Hmm.
excited to write that trope. Genres, though, I don't know. I really like fantasy romance.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'd ever be able to write it. But that's something that I've never done. So who knows, honestly, with me, I just kind of go where I like, where I just go wherever I feel like going, honestly, which is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But so fantasy, maybe one day, maybe just like a little veer off to the left and then come back to sports. The one thing that I feel is consistent in my books versus like the high school bully, the boarding school, the dark romance, the lighter romance is the sports aspect.
Hmm.
Like even in English prep, there's sports. In St. Mary's, there's lacrosse. So I've always kind of touched on like the sports aspect. So I feel very comfortable in sports romance. So I'm sure there'll be sports in all my books.
Which it just gives it's like just a element, an extra element to the book.
Yeah,
I find
it's
that
just
too.
yeah. I just
And
and I love it. I love all sports, honestly.
honestly same to be fair. Like I feel like I would sit down and happily watch anything,
Yeah.
but still have no idea what's going on and just be
Yeah,
like,
so
oh,
I
okay.
definitely like I put lacrosse in St. Mary's and I have never in my life played lacrosse. I've never watched lacrosse. I was like, I want something cool and fresh and new. And so I was like, lacrosse. And then I had to spend hours like researching it because I was like, I don't even know like what do they even call the stick things? Like, I have no idea.
It's the
Um
same. It's the same thing with hockey. I feel like I would have no clue what they're all doing, but as soon as they're on the ice and it's getting rowdy, I'm like, this is fantastic.
It is. I actually went to my first hockey game last May, I think. I don't know. It was like in the summer or springtime. And I was like, this is so cool. I was like, this is amazing. I want to go to all the hockey games now. I like came home and I was like, we gotta watch hockey. And my husband's like, all right, cool, let's watch it. And now we're just like hockey fans too. So
Now, did you go to a hockey game before you started writing it or afterwards?
after, which is another funny thing, is that I read like one hockey romance before I just was like, I'm gonna write a hockey romance. This sounds fun. Um, and thankfully, my alpha reader, her son plays hockey, her husband plays hockey. So I was like, please double check my hockey terminology. I was like,
Hmm.
because I want to make sure it's accurate. And like, I don't know what the heck I mean, I kind of get the concept of it, but I was like, I don't know it well enough yet So
Yeah.
she would go through and check all my stuff. And now I'm pretty well versed in it. Like I understand it. I know what they call things. I know all the slang. But at first, when I wrote Weeks by, I had no idea what I was doing.
How did you research for that? Or did you just watch games? Was it just
Yeah,
research online?
both. I would watch
Yeah.
games. I would look up YouTube videos. I would just look up like hockey slang, hockey terminology, and I kind of like just studied for it, to be honest, because I didn't really read any. I read maybe one or two hockey romances. And once I'm writing a certain genre or trope, I will not read anything like
Yeah.
similar to it. So I was like, well, I can't like look in other books or read other books and kind of get the like feel for it. So I just really just went on like a Google search and just learned.
I love that. That's the teacher in you. You got to do your research.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I have to go back to your high school romance because that's actually how I found your books. So they were the ones that I started with. So I
Yeah.
started with English Prep and then St. Mary's. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. One of my favorite series of all time. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's got that sort of creepy academy vibe to it as well. And there's so much angst. There's so much you don't know. There's secrets. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was so good. What inspired you to start writing that particular genre?
The high school bully or boarding school or both?
Do you know what? I'm going to say both because I'm genuinely interested.
Okay. So with the high school bully, so with English prep, I just read a ton of bully romances and like I was just kind of in like a high school romance,
Hmm.
I don't know, fog. I was just like all I would read for like a year straight. And I couldn't find, and I felt like I did not read all of them, but I felt like I read all of them or they were getting very repetitive.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Like, why don't I just write my own? Because I can't really find a book that I haven't already read to hold my attention. So that's how I started with All the Little Lies. I just started writing one my own. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I really love this whole trope, this whole vibe, the English prep, because I really didn't mean for it to be three books. I was just going to write All the Little Lies and kind of see how it did. But then I just fell in love with the other characters. So I just made it a whole series. So that's how that started. With the boarding school romance, I just knew that I wanted it to be darker than
Hmm.
English prep. And something very twisted and suspenseful because I love reading books like that. You know, page turners are, I mean, I feel like everyone loves a page turner. So that's kind of how St. Mary's started. And I loved writing every single book. They're so angsty and so emotional. Um, but then that's how I started writing Weekside because in like the third to fourth book of St. Mary's, I was like, okay, this is getting really dark.
Yeah.
And I kind of just needed like a palette cleanser. Like I just needed something that wasn't so dark. I wanted something flirty and fun to just kind
Yes.
of give myself a break. And then naturally I fell in love with writing sports romance. And so here I am.
I love that. Do you think you will ever go back to writing a sort of an academy darker vibe? Or right now you're like, you know what?
Maybe. I don't know. If I do, I think it would be like a college, like maybe like not like I don't know what they call them, not a prep school college, but like a fancier college, whatever, like
Yeah.
high society college. I would
Hmm.
probably I could see myself doing that for sure. I really like I loved my English prep in St. Mary's, but I really enjoy writing older characters now.
Yes.
And maybe that's because I'm just a little bit older. And you can also pull a lot more tropes with the older characters, I think. Because high
Yes.
school, it's like, they're still kind of young, so you don't want to get like too racy, but still spicy enough to where readers like it. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's probably what I would do. I probably would just stick with like a college, but probably I still love dark romance. And then Sarah Mastery and we wrote Sticks and Stones together,
Hmm.
which is a college hockey romance, and that's kind of enough for me right now to like pull in a little bit of that darkness. So it's like I have the best of both worlds right now.
Absolutely. Just like dabble the toes in just a
Yeah,
little bit and then come back
yeah,
out when you're ready.
yep. It's like the perfect balance for me.
But I feel like that happens as a reader too. Like you were saying, like high school,
Yeah,
you probably not something that you would
yeah,
revisit. But I
yeah,
sort of think it's the same for readers too. Like I went through such a high school bully. Like I look back at my Kindle and I was like, wow, I really went through a stage there.
yeah,
And now it's not probably something I would read just because I think as a reader, I just that age just doesn't sort of
yeah.
interest me so much anymore.
Right.
But then I feel like there's so many recommendations and it reminds me because I need to do a video on it on for the people that are in their
Yeah,
high school bully moment, their genre.
Yeah.
gosh, there are some good ones out there.
There really are. There are so many good ones, and I read so many of them too. Like I could probably give you a lot of recs because my Kindle was just like loaded with them. And that was back when I could like have a little more time to read. My kids were a little bit younger, so not so much now, unfortunately.
It is. It was such a good, it's so, I have to say the word angsty.
Yeah.
And with you, you are known to be, and you love angsty romance and writing it. You're known for it. But what is it you love about writing it?
I don't know. It's like the push and the pull. It keeps me
Hmm.
going with my characters. It keeps me interested as an author. And I'm assuming it's like that for readers too. Like I find myself if my characters get too lovey-dovey too quick, I'm like, "Meh, I'm bored." Like I that's just who I am. I guess it's what I like. I just love the tension and the chemistry and I don't know, just the angst of it. I just love it. I just think it keeps me interested. Maybe that's why I'm so heavy on it. And I feel like now, as I don't even know what number of books I'm releasing at this point, but it's, I feel like I'm becoming known for slow burns and like
Hmm.
unintentionally, like I don't even like start out being like, this is going to be a slow burn. But by the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a slow burn. Everyone's going to kill me. Like, this is so much of a slow burn. But I think that's just where I'm comfortable writing.
Oh, 100%. And I feel
Yeah.
like with your new release, and we'll skip one question and I'll go back. So
Okay.
you've got Play the Game, and it's the first book in your Blue Devils hockey series. And let's chat about it because I read it last night and I flew through it. I really
Yeah.
did. Yes, I noticed it was a slow burn, but I felt like it really made sense with
Yeah.
the marriage contract that's in it,
Mhm.
the way they met. It would not have made sense to me. And I think
Exactly.
that spicy books, that I love them. They're great.
Right. For
But I
sure.
think sometimes you do need more of that plot to really go, okay, I'm really invested in these characters rather than
Yeah.
going in 30% and going, oh, here we are.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point that it also just depends on the plot because sometimes I mean, like, it would be different if it was like a one night stand and they've been together before or something, but that's not how it is with at least these two
Hmm.
characters, you know? So it would have been weird if I just like threw it in. And I find myself when I'm writing because I'm a pantser, so I don't necessarily plot my books. I kind of loosely plot them, but I don't really stick with a plot. Like I just kind of know the climax and like the overall story arc, and that's kind
Hmm.
of like I just kind of go where it takes me. But with most of my books, I find myself questioning like, should I add a spicy scene in here? Because I feel like readers, it's almost like I'm writing for the readers at that point. So I have to
Yeah.
like either take a step back or like my alpha reader or beta reader be like, stop it. Do not put spice in yet. Make us work for it because it's going to keep
Hmm.
us turning the page. And I'm like, okay, because it doesn't usually feel right if I do write a spicy scene early on. So it depends on the plot, I think a lot. And my plots are angsty. So
As we know. And Emery and Scotty your new book, there's so much tension between them.
yeah.
They've had to move in together after this marriage contract. So there is that constant push and pull. I loved it. I really did. What did you love about writing it? And it's the new series too. So you must just be in a new world now.
Yeah, so I feel like this is different from most authors that I know at least. I love writing the first in the series. A lot of authors like writing like further on, but I'm like the first in the series, I get to do the world building, I get to make all the things that I want to make. It's I have a lot more freedom when I do the first book in a series. Like I get to introduce all the characters and everything like that. So I like that part of writing this book. It's just really I don't know. I get to just expand on my creativity, I guess, when it's the first in the series. And I also just absolutely was feral for Emery. And when he said my wife, like that was all
Hmm.
like my all-time favorite part of writing this book, this trope, like that just did it for me. I was like, the first time I wrote my wife, I was like, all right, I'm sold. I'm obsessed with this book now. And I just keep throwing it in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's obsessed with this, and I'm obsessed with this.
Oh, it was a thing for him.
Oh
Like
yeah. Oh yeah.
he was a husband from day one. Let's face
Oh
it.
yeah. The possessiveness that he has for her, even when he
Hmm.
like acts like he hates her, it was just that was my favorite part. Yep. Chef's kiss all the way.
But I have to say, I love a first book too in a series simply because, like you said, it introduces you to other characters.
Yeah.
Your single dad.
Oh, I'm
Don't
so
think
ready.
I'm not obsessed with him.
I know. I am too. I wrote him and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have to write a single dad nanny. Like really, I'm ready for it. I'm so excited. I start writing next week and I'm already like counting down the days until I can like jump in his book and start writing it.
Oh my God, I bet. And I love that the little girl, she's so sweet and she's so young. And there's so much, I guess, dialogue that you have to play with her
Yeah,
being so young. Do you take, and this is just an extra random question,
that's
do you take inspiration from being a mum
absolutely.
and things that you hear?
Absolutely. 100%. Like, I know what it's like to have a 5-year-old. Like, I have a 5-year-old and I have an 8-year-old. And my 8-year-old's 8. My son, or I'm sorry, my 8-year-old's 8. My daughter is 8. My son is 5. So I feel like I've been through like a good chunk of time with my kids that I can really pull some fun stuff. And it's funny, like, so Shudder and Play the Game is actually like loosely based on my cat. I have a black cat, which is a girl, and we rescued her. So like when I put Shudder in
Oh,
the book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is 100% my cat right now. So I got to pull that from like my real life. So that's always really fun to do.
oh, I love that. And I feel like, are you firmly in your hockey era right now? Do you feel like you're just going to stay in this world for a little bit?
I would say sports era.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
like a little hint. Yeah, I would say sports era.
I love what you did
Definitely
there.
like this whole series is definitely hockey, but in the future, I would say there's definitely going to be some other sports coming to you guys.
I love that because for some reason, and I picked yours up last night, and I haven't like read sports in what feels like a really long time. I feel like I went through again like a phase where it was just
Yeah.
all I was reading was hockey romance or sports romance, and it
Yep.
kind of dipped off. Now I'm
Mhm.
like, why did I ever stop?
I know
This
it's
is
so
where it's at.
addicting. It's so addicting. I don't know what it is about sports romance, hockey romance in particular. It's very addicting. Um, I don't know. And I feel like there's you got your dark hockey and your college hockey and your pro
Hmm.
hockey and your fun and flirty hockey. So I feel like there's a lot of different tiers too. You can play around with it.
Oh, 100%. So what's next for SJ Sylvis? What have you got like you can talk about up your sleeve?
Okay, so obviously there's going to be another book in the series coming out probably January, February. Right now the date's like May on
Hmm.
Amazon. That's just to give me some time to play around with the date. So this series for sure will be finished off, and then I'll have another series that I'm not going to talk about yet
Hmm.
because still working out the kinks. S. Massery and I are going to be releasing a book, the second book in our Shadow Valley University series, and that will be in December. So that's what's next for books for now. And then I have some signings coming up. I don't know if you want me to list the signings or not, but I have some signings.
Absolutely. That is
Okay,
definitely one of my
so
questions.
oh yeah, that's right. So I'll be in Love in Vegas in
Hmm.
October. I have a note up here for all of my signings. Wild and Windy West in Phoenix in February, and then I'll be in Wild and Windy Chicago in May. And then I do have plans to do more signings next year, but we might be moving to Japan, which I know sounds insane. My husband's in the military, so it's like on
That makes
military
sense.
orders. Yeah, it's like we're not just moving to Tokyo. Because everyone's like, what? Like, why? So if we're moving to Japan, which we will find that out like in January,
Hmm.
things are going to be shifted for sure on my end. So we'll see for the second half of the year where we're going to be and where I'm going to be able to, come back to the US for like a couple weeks and then go back to Japan. So we'll see.
That's such a big change, like as,
Yeah.
personally, as a family, I guess with your writing, it's, but so exciting too. Like, are you a
Yeah.
big
It's like
traveler?
there's
Do you
pros and
like,
cons to it. Like the move in general does not sound fun to me. But like
hmm
once we're there, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just like getting everything organized, which I'm not an organized person, unfortunately. So we'll see how it goes.
you're like, January's the plan, but we'll see if it
Yeah.
goes.
Like what we'll see. I'm just like telling my husband, I was like, we'll just wait until we have the orders because Marine Corps is known for just like switching things last minute. Like they'll give you like computer orders and
Hmm.
it'll say like, hey, you're going to Japan, we need you there in July. And then like a month later they'll give you your hard orders and like which is paper and they'll be like, just kidding, you're going to Yuma, Arizona. And you're like, what? What? So I always just try to. My husband's in the military for like 14 years at this point.
Hmm.
So I'm like, let's just take a breather and wait until we get actual orders because we've learned or in the past that they change things. So We'll
Yeah.
see.
And have you had to move before?
Oh yeah, we've moved 3 or 4 times. We've lived in North Carolina, Louisiana, North
Yeah.
Carolina, and now Arizona. So we're used to the moving. Japan's a little extra though.
Yeah. It's
It's,
like you're like, wow, that's another step. I mean,
yeah, it's like, oh,
it sort of brings me to, and I hope you don't mind me asking,
oh, you're fine.
um, would do you ever see yourself doing a military romance? Because
I
you
actually have
basically live it. Do
I have
you?
one. I do. It's a standalone. It's like before my English prep series, which that's what I'm
Yes.
really known for. It's a complete standalone. It's called Yours Truly, Cami, and a lot of my readers really enjoy that book. I don't promote my standalones very much because
Mm-hmm.
they're still spicy. They're just not as spicy or
Yep.
dark as what I write and promote now. But yeah, I do have a military romance, and
I am
it's
putting that on
really
my
fun.
TBR.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's like kind of like a rom-com, and they've got like the neighbors, their neighbors. It's got some good tropes in there before I even knew what like really good tropes were. I just wrote what I wanted to write. But yeah, I do have one military romance.
I love that because it is such a popular genre. It really is. And
Yeah.
you basically live it. Like I
Yeah, for
love that
sure.
when someone's got personal connections to what they're
Yeah.
writing. I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, the stories I could tell honestly with the military, I could probably write 100 books to be honest.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine. I can imagine. But I think that's just there's such a resilience to a military family. You know, you
Yeah.
just sort of go, right, we've got to up sticks and
Yeah.
kids are so well grounded because they're moving around so much that they're comfortable with moving.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's how it works out for our kids in the long run, that they become a little more resilient and, it makes them want to travel more. I try to look at the pros because there's definitely cons to it too, now that they're a
Hmm.
little older, especially my daughter. So I'm hoping that it just kind of builds them up a little bit, makes them well-rounded adults. We'll see. I don't know.
No, if I can give any advice personally, my dad used to flip houses and all around the UK.
Oh,
And
cool.
I think I would have lived in about 20 before I
Wow.
was 18.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so it was never like I never had like a childhood room or anything because it was
Yeah.
like, right, this is really nice now, we've got to go. And you're like, wait, what? It's just got nice.
Like you just made it nice.
And now we're here? Oh,
Right.
lovely. But it
That's
made
so
me
funny. But
resilient. I
yeah.
can say that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I always tell them, I'm like, our family is our family, like not our house. Like it's okay. Like we still have our stuff. Everything's fine. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that I'm hoping they get to Japan if we do go there and they're just like, this is so cool. So I don't know.
That's so exciting. But hopefully, after you get there or before, I'm not sure how it will work out for you. We're hoping to attend Wild and Woody, Arizona. So hopefully, I get to
Yes.
see you in person.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I only live 2.5 hours away from there. So I'm like planning on bringing like all the stuff with me because I can drive. So, oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
And I love that you say 2.5 hours because my partner he doesn't get frustrated with me, but he's like, you do realize you can't just go from here to here. It's not that easy. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's a plane, maybe a
Fine.
hire
You're
car.
fine.
How hard can it be? But it
Right.
actually is
I
huge.
mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. I honestly rather drive places than fly. I'm not a good flyer. I don't like to fly. And I say that as I have a 14-hour flight to Japan possibly in the future. But I hope you can come. That would be really fun.
I know. It would be so. I always find it because I'm currently in Australia that you couldn't feel more far away. You really
Yeah.
couldn't. And you see all these fun things happen in America. And I'm like, okay, I've at least got to do one a year. I've got to go
Yeah.
somewhere. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. And Arizona is, I call it like a hidden gem. There are so many things to see and do in Arizona too. Like I did not realize that until I moved here, but Arizona is a really cool place to go to.
I'm going to have to get some tips from you.
Okay, I got all the tips. Email me, I will give you all the tips.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I'm going to take this offline because I want
That's
to
fine.
see if I can get any spoilers. I always do. You got to be cheeky.
Yep,
It's-
I'm here for it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. And I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but SJ Sylvis and S. Massery came out with an announcement that their second book in the Shadow Valley U series, It's Heart of Thorns, comes out in December. So let's just collectively add that to our TBRs in December. I'm so excited. So these are the books that you need to be aware of and you might want to add to your TBR. So out now, we have Jagger Cole's Emperor of Rage. I think this is his best series yet. And that is saying something because I am a Jagger Cole stan. So good. But as always, check your trigger warnings. Then on the 25th of October by Morgan Elizabeth, we have If This Was a Movie. It's Nanny, Single Dad. I'm going to eat this one up. I just know it. I love Morgan Elizabeth and her books. It's just like watching a rom-com. And then lastly, on the 24th of October, SJ Tilly comes out with Dear Rosie. It is a childhood friends to lovers. I can't wait. That is all for the Book Tea with V. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, you can find me on Instagram, on TikTok, or YouTube at V Reads. See you next time. That's the tea.